Talkin Cougars is presented by Flat Stick Pub, local craft beer, old school fun, memorable moments. What's up, Talkin Cougars? Episode 3. I'm your guy, Michael Bumpus. What a great win by our WSU Cougars down in Colorado, B.
Yeah, it was, man. They came to play week 1. You just never know what to expect. And I'll tell you what, the boys came off the bus. Slow start a little bit, maybe, offensively and defensively, but they got going to the tune of 50 points on the scoreboard at the end. And guess who contributed? Everybody. Offense, defense, and special teams.
That's my guy, Alex Brink. Let's get into the opening drive. Opening drive is brought to you by Valley Buick GMC. See you in the Valley. Our boys went over to Fort Collins and got it done, man. The thing that impressed me the most is that they went down 3-0 and didn't really flinch. It wasn't a perfect game, but once this offense got going, you saw the explosiveness, you saw Cam Ward being calm, and we're going to highlight some players too. And you saw the defense contribute as well. I think this was the type of game this team needed to establish themselves week 1 in a Pac-12 that is full of talent and full of offenses putting up 50 points, B.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect by any means, but there was a ton of good to take away from this game. And you talk about having to defend offenses in this league. The Coug defense stepped up big time. I mean, they made life so hard for that Colorado State offense. After that first drive, when Colorado State drove down and got 3 points, it felt like the Rams couldn't get a first down pretty much the rest of the game until it was garbage time. But yeah, that defensive line came to play. And you know who really came to play? The defensive backs. Jaden Hicks, an interception for a touchdown. Jackson Latai-Mua had first interception of his career. And I thought Shaw Smith-Wade, the corner, and Javen Robinson, the other corner, were both locked down on that backside for Washington State.
I love seeing Hicks, man, drop into the flat. One, the route combination by Colorado, somebody messed up. You got an arrow and a hitch right there. They made life easy for Hicks, but he picked it off and he takes it to the house. And going into this game, we knew that Colorado wanted to throw the football, right? Clay Millen completed 72% of his passes last year. They benched him. You put in your backup quarterback and nothing really changed. So I love the way they were able to handle it. We talked about it last week that personnel-wise, they should be okay. Schematically is where you can find yourself in some trouble. But at no point did I feel like Colorado was really in this game. Even when they went up 3-0, you felt like this defense was going to be able to corral them and this offense was going to be able to get going. Man, Cam Ward and the offense had a great day.
Boy, did they ever get going. And I saw this guy in the slot. I tell you what, he reminded me of another guy that I know in the slot, Michael Bumpus. Lincoln Victor had a monster game for Washington State. You know, the senior's been through a lot. He started at Hawaii, then he transferred to Washington State. He probably didn't get the touches in the run he wanted to the last couple of years, but boy, did he ever break out in week 1. He was all over the field. I mean, he honestly was unguardable. They matched him up on linebackers. They got him vertical down the field. It was really impressive. I know you love slot receiver play. I thought in general, the receiver play was really, really good. And that helped Cam Ward obviously get going, who had a great game in his own right.
Yeah, Lincoln Victor, man. You know I love the slot. He's wearing number 5. I used to rock the number 5. My dude had a $168 on the ground, but here's the part that gets me the most. 100 of those yards were yak. That means He was getting the ball and getting busy, man. I spoke to Coach Dickert. He says, if you knew Lincoln Victor, the way that he puts in the work, the way that he leads, this isn't going to be a surprise for you. He's already about halfway to the total of his yards from last year. So it's nice to see this guy, a quarterback in high school, makes the transition, like you said, bounce around to a couple schools, ends up in Wazoo and says, look, I know you got a lot of receivers coming in. I know a lot have left, but I'm still your guy. And it's nice for Cam Ward to have a player like that to lean on.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, having a safety blanket, I can speak to that as a quarterback. Having that safety blanket is so important. And then you had transfer receivers that came in, and you got to gel with them. And I thought that group overall really seemed to not miss a beat in week 1. And, you know, offense, defense, we can talk about all of that. It's a 3-phase game. And the special teams showed up also. Dean Janikowski kicks a 50-yarder. A little bit of altitude, like I'll give him that, but that was a heck of a kick. So everybody contributed. Tons of action on the field. If for some reason you missed it, take a look back here and see some of the highlights from the game.
Great to be with you, the Cougs and the Colorado State Rams.
Fort Collins ain't ready for the Cougs today, boy.
All right, never lose sight of that. Play for one another, lead this team, and dominate today.
Good, here we go. It's time.
It's time. Let's go.
We done waited way too long. It's time to get serious around this thing, man.
Time, baby. Best in the world, sir.
You mentioned a tough environment. It was brand new in 2017. This is not an easy place to play. So sets in the pocket, lets it fly, far sideline, and throws it way over the head of Torrey Courtney. Snap, Ward, QB sneak. Ball is over the goal line, touchdown. 1 yard, Cam Ward puts it in, and it's 6-3 Cougs. Backup running back, he shoots through the middle, and RJ Snow drops it. Millen on 4th and 1, tackle for Ross, turnover down. Has a first down with Green at the 50. Blocking's there 40. Couple of men to beat at the 30, and he's brought down to the Colorado State 21-yard line. Rolls out right, zips it back in the end zone. Touchdown Williams. It's his first Cougar touchdown. 5 seconds left in the half. Big leg through, left, right to left, end over end, and it is good. 55 yards. Janikowski, a new career long. Cougs up 17-3 going into the locker room. Lets it fly, has Victor over the shoulder, and he's inside the 10-yard line on the haul. Intercepted Hicks, sideline house call. Big pressure, huge loss on the play. Hicks and Edson in there blasting Millen back. A walk-in touchdown. 10 seconds into the fourth quarter to make it 35-3. It's a great start to 2023, a 50-point spot on the board. Washington State blasts Colorado State 50-24, and the Cougs are 1-0.
Talkin Cougars is presented by Flat Stick Pub. Time for Talking Numbers, presented by Cross Country Mortgage, making every mortgage feel like a win. Boy, looking back at this game, Bump, can't talk numbers without talking offense and talking Cam Ward, because he had a monster game. 451 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, another touchdown on the ground. And new offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle used him in a ton of different ways. He was dropping back, throwing the ball down the field, quick game, screens, and then he was using his legs in quarterback designed runs. Look, if that's the Cam Ward we're going to get all year, Washington State's going to be in a good spot because he was special. And again, he's the straw that stirs the drink for the Cougs. And I loved what I saw from him. I loved the way he executed. And I loved the way that he commanded this new offense that he got thrown into starting this year.
Yeah, it's never easy making the switch from one coordinator to the next, right? Even if there's some similarities in that offense, there's still some differences in expectations and how these coordinators expect you to read. And he looked like he was in control the whole time. Another thing I love about Cam Ward is he would get out the pocket and keep his eyes down the field. There was even grass for him to run sometimes. He goes, look, let me check and make sure all my guys are covered or checking someone is open. And he kept his eyes down the field. We mentioned Lincoln Victor having a 168. You got Kelly with 97 yards and a touchdown as well. There was one play where Cam Ward is rolling to the left, finds a guy in the end zone, boom, he hits him. There was a calmness about his game that I feel like I needed to see. Last year it showed up in spurts and you felt like it was okay, but last year he was still adjusting to this game. This year it feels like he's more comfortable. He has an offensive coordinator who gets him. He gets this offense. And I can't imagine what this offense looks like once the run game gets going too. Nakia Watson did have a receiving touchdown, but we want to see the big boy run the ball as well. So I think we're just scratching the surface of what this offense can really be.
Yeah, Ben Arbuckle wants to be balanced. Balanced doesn't necessarily mean 50-50 run and pass, but it really means distributing to multiple playmakers and finding the weaknesses in the defense. And I really felt like that's the direction Washington State went against Colorado State. Once they got a feel for what the Rams were doing, they distributed to the playmakers. Like you mentioned, the receivers, Lincoln Victor. And I think when it presents itself, that run game is going to be pretty explosive with Nakia Watson and Jalen Jenkins. But they still got to find a way to keep that offensive line gelling. They got to find a way to figure out what are the best run plays. And that's going to present itself over the next few weeks. In general, I thought the offense was sharp. Cam had a couple moments, right? He put the ball on the ground once. Ball security is job security, as we like to say, right, Bump? And I think he's got to keep cleaning that up. But in general, it was a really clean game from the offense. And I think a really great outing for a new offensive coordinator in Ben Arbuckle.
Yeah, you talk about that offensive line. I believe he was sacked 2 or 3 times, but it's going to take a while for that offensive line to gel a bit. Right? We talk about the relationship on that offensive line. There's a lot of feel and trust that needs to happen. But for the most part, Cam Ward looked like he kept things pretty clean. You did mention the couple fumbles that he had. It's okay. Ball security, keep your eyes on the ball. It's all about possession. Those are things that you can clean up. It's almost a blessing that they didn't come out and just have a perfect offensive performance, because now you got some things you can go back and you can watch and you can learn from. One, I've never seen a perfect game. There's always some things that you can work on. But when the obvious is out there, it keeps the guys humble too. Yes, you put up 50 points. You better have put up 50 points. You know why? Because 5 other teams in the pack put up 50. Oregon puts up 51. So this is the new Pac-12 we're looking at right now. You got quarterbacks who can throw the football. You got offenses putting up points. And WSU showed this weekend or past weekend that they can hang with the best of them.
Yeah, and I talked to Jake Dickert after the game in the locker room, and he said specifically what you said about making a few mistakes. He said, hey, it's okay that we made a few mistakes because I can go back and I can teach off that tape. I can teach on the film, right? Defense had some lapses late in the game. Offense had a couple moments here or there where it could be better. And you're right, it wasn't perfect, and that's okay because the coaches feel like, hey, we can go teach, we can get these guys to continue to stay in it. And I think when you look at that defensive performance, again, same idea. Started a little bit slow, were phenomenal in the late part of the game, and then towards the end when the game was in hand, right, they had some lapses with the 1s and 2s on the field that they can really coach off of. But it really stood out to me as a defense that's going to hold up against these great offenses you're talking about in the pack.
Yeah, I love the point of getting the 2s out there so they can feel it too. Because at some point, you're going to need that number 2 to go out there and make some plays. So why not get them out on the field week 1 thanks to your offense and your defense doing what they're supposed to do. The secondary was sticky as well. Obviously, again, there's more things to work on, but they had 9 passes defended. You love to see that. A couple interceptions. There was so much good and a little bit of bad that I think it was the perfect storm for week 1. I just can't wait to see how they build off of that and how guys get better week in and week out.
Yeah, and I got to ask, Bump, because he is new to Washington State, offense coordinator Ben Arbuckle, again, youngest coordinator in the country, 27 years old. What do you think of that first game and the way he called plays?
Oh, man, I loved it. It all made sense. You ever watch a game where plays aren't connected and there's no rhythm and flow to it? I mean, there were times where, we pumped the ball a couple series in a row, but you kind of see what he's building and what he's trying to do. And it looked like he really understands his personnel. And that's huge as an offensive coordinator. Understand who you have. You have a plan. You have what you like to run. But if you don't understand who your players are, you don't know how to get them to work within that system.
Yeah, it was super clean. I loved the scheme. I love the way he used tempo. I mean, after a first down, Washington State was up on the ball, ready to go, running a play. And typically, those were positive plays that gained big yardage. So I think there's a lot to love about what Ben Arbuckle brings to this team as the offensive coordinator. And coming up, we're going to look ahead at next week's opponent, the Wisconsin Badgers.
Talkin Cougars is presented by Flat Stick Pub. Let's take a look at our Coug Spotlight presented by Coug First. Think Coug First for products, services, and hiring. Every Coug fan should be looking at the Badgers, man. And why should they be looking at the Badgers? We beat them at their house last year. They're coming to the Palouse, and they are led by their head coach, Fickell. Now, if you know Fickell, you know him from Cincinnati, undefeated season, coach of the year. He really changed the identity of Cincinnati in that football program. This guy knows what he's talking about. It's all about leadership. He's surrounded himself by a great coaching staff, and they want some payback. So when you look at this Wisconsin Badger team, B, tell me what you see. What should we look for?
Well, you're right about Coug fans having eyes on this Badger football team because it's a different team than what Washington State saw last year at Camp Randall. And a lot of that has to do, like you said, with Luke Fickell, but also the offensive coordinator, Phil Longo. Gone are the days of smash mouth, under center, 2-back Wisconsin Badger football. Phil Longo is one of the best offensive coordinators in the country, and he is an air raid disciple. He actually learned the air raid from the man himself, Mike Leach, who the Cougs are going to be honoring this weekend against the Badgers. And he's put his twist on it, but he's really good. Sam Howell, the starter for the Washington Redskins, he's a Longo disciple from North Carolina. Drake May, a Heisman candidate at North Carolina, again, played for Longo. And so they're going to bring an explosive offense. And I think it's super important that Washington State, as they break down the film, they're going to have to tackle in space. They're going to have to make sure that that defensive line can get pressure. And as much as that air raid leans into the spread and throwing the football, Wisconsin also has two great backs. So it's a really talented offensive football team with a great coordinator. And that's going to create a lot of havoc for the Washington State defense. I think they're up for the challenge, but I know that Jake Dickert and defensive coordinator Jeff Schmedding are going to be sweating when they're watching that tape this week.
Yeah, that's the crazy part is we know they're going to see a spread, but you look at the run game, you go, hold on, didn't they rush for over 300 yards with these guys last week? But you got to look at how they did it. They were still 2x2, 3x1. They were spread out, and just the run game was there, so they took advantage of it. So I think that's what's going to make this matchup even more competitive is that Wisconsin hasn't really gotten to their bag when it comes to throwing the football. You look at the stats, they ran the football 40 times and had success, but still threw the football as well. They reserve the right to do whatever they want. So I love that last week you get the air raid, you get prepared for this Wisconsin team, and now you got to prepare for both. And we know a good defense can do whatever they want, right? You can stop the run and you're good against the pass. This Wisconsin offense is going to be explosive. It's going to be a good challenge for our guys, and I think they can step up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what can cause problems for a spread offense? A loud crowd. And Washington State has got a sellout on their hands at Martin Stadium. You and I both know that the Palouse is going to be rocking on Saturday night. I can't wait to see what the fan base does and how they show up and make life hard for transfer quarterback Tanner Mordecai from SMU. I don't know that he's ever seen a crowd like he's going to see in Pullman and how excited they're going to be. And that's the thing, man, is when you get up in a game like this with all the bright lights on, you're a top 20 team, and you're playing against a team that's got nothing to lose, that's a bad spot to be in. I think Washington State's got a great chance in this game to come out and make a statement on a national stage.
Coming up, we're going to give you our impact players, the guys who need to step up and do their thing against the Badgers.
Talkin Cougars is presented by Flat Stick Pub.
Every Coug fan should be looking at the Badgers.
The Palouse is going to be rocking.
We beat them at their house last year.
Had a monster game.
Getting the ball and getting busy.
I mean, they made life so hard.
They want some payback. And put them in a garbage hotel.
Wow.
Let them really feel the Palouse.
Time now for our best bet, brought to you by Northern Quest Resort and Casino. Largest casino in the Northwest. Bump, let's roll the dice on who we think is going to make an impact against the Badgers. To me, you mentioned those running backs for Wisconsin and the way they were able to dominate Buffalo, dominate the line of scrimmage to a tune of over 300 yards rushing. I think the impact players have got to be that interior of the defensive line. We know about the edges, Ron Stone Jr., Brennan Jackson. Those guys are going to make plays. But to stop the run, it starts with the big boys up front. Guys like David Gusta, guys like Nusi Milani. If they can hold up and allow the linebackers to run sideline to sideline and make plays, they're going to make life hard for running backs Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi, who are impact. They're dynamite players for Wisconsin. So to me, it starts up front for Washington State.
Yeah, you're right about that combo that Wisconsin had with like a $147, a $150 something between the two of them or each. I'm going to go with our running back, the big boy, Nikhil Watson, who actually comes from Wisconsin. And the reason why I'm going with Nikhil Watson is because you need to establish the run. There are going to be games where the back end is sticky from the opposition, right? The zone coverage is great. The man coverage is great. How do you loosen things up? You hand that football to your big boy in the backfield and you let him start bruising this defense and getting downhill. I think that's part of what we want to see. Going into last week, we thought we would see more tight end and running backs, but sometimes you don't need it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And our offensive coordinator said, all right, let's just keep throwing this football around and seeing what happens. I think Nikhil Watson and the way he runs that football can really break a defense down and open up everything on the outside and up those seams. So I'm looking at the big boy. Come on, Nikhil, let's go get it and show him how we run the ball in the Palouse.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Nikhil Watson can make an impact. We saw it last year in Camp Randall. He had 2 touchdowns, and he was electric. I mean, he caught one, and he ran one in. He got better as the season went on. In 2022, when Nikhil Watson had big games, Washington State's offense had big games. And I think that's going to hold true as they move through this season against these better opponents. Wisconsin's defense is better than Colorado State's defense. So you have to have some semblance of balance. You can't just drop back and throw the football consistently. It's vital that Nikhil Watson and Jalen Jenkins both have a chance to make an impact running the football. Offensive line, running backs, that's going to come into it. And then you can spread it out. Then you can get that ball in the hands of those receivers that can make an impact. But you already know, Wisconsin's going to turn on that Colorado State film, and they're going to mark Lincoln Victor. And they're going to mark those guys on the outside, which means you got to find a way to create that balance with the run game for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned Jenkins because we got a 1-2 combo as well. All due respect to the Wisconsin Badgers and their 1-2. They're proving they show that they can do that. I don't think they realize what we have over here in the Palouse. Get the young man going, get the old head going. Yeah, man, complete football. That's what I'm looking for, and I love it. I love complete football. Being a receiver, I still know we got to run the rocks to get me open, man. Lincoln Victor knows that too. He needs a big one.
Yeah, and Cougs got to start fast also, right? You're playing at home. It's your home opener. You're going to have the sellout crowd we talked about. You got to get that crowd into it, right? And so being able to start fast is going to get them going and get that crowd into it. And then you get the energy. And once you get the energy, it's hard to shut that faucet off. And then the Badgers start feeling it. I mean, they've never obviously been to Pullman. They don't know what that experience is like. And I think it's going to be pretty wide-eyed for them when they see that place rocking.
That's it for us. Another week of Talking Cougars. I'm excited. Hey, if you want more of what I do, here's where you can find me every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Seattle Sports. I'm one of the hosts on the Bump and Stacy show. On the weekends, I do some Pac-12 network type of deals, and also on Twitter, Michael Bumpus 5. Come holla at me.
Coug fans, thank you for tuning in. I'll be on the call this Saturday with Matt Chasnow, the voice of the Cougs, sideline reporter Jessamine McIntyre. I'm fired up to see Martin Stadium and all of you in it for this home opener. You can find me on Twitter at AlexSpring10. Thank you again. Talking Cougs, episode 3. We're out, bro.